There's free speech and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Attorney General Pam Bondi asserted she would go after hate speech, but the speech the Justice Department can prosecute is extremely limited, according to legal experts. Bondi made her initial comments on the Katie Miller podcast, vowing to go after, quote, hate speech after conservative activist Charlie Kirk's assassination. The Attorney General faced immense backlash from both sides of the political aisle after her comments, which were widely interpreted as calling for unlawful prosecutions.
We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech.
She has since partly walked back her statements. She posted on X, quote, hate speech that crosses the line into threats of violence is not protected by the First Amendment. It is a crime. Jonathan Adler, a professor at William and Mary Law School, told the Washington Examiner that despite Bondi's attempt to adjust her statement, it does not change that, quote, hate speech is not a prosecutable offense. In the United States, there is no legal definition of hate speech, but the term has typically been used to define speech expressing animosity or bigotry toward particular groups of people. The narrow exception to free speech that the Justice Department can prosecute is incitement or threats of imminent harm, but these exceptions are incredibly limited. The Justice Department continued to step back from Bondi's initial statement, noting it would not go after, quote, nasty speech, but only true incitements of violence.
I want people watching, some people on the right especially, my perspective. I'm not a Trump basher. Not my guy, didn't vote for him, wouldn't again, okay? I'm a guy in the middle. I'm a guy who believes a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and what I believe in. I'm here for one reason, First Amendment. I'm an attorney, I'm a citizen. It's bad, and it's getting worse. You can't use easy way, hard way, the government coercing. That's case law on that, First Amendment violation, right? And I'm on pins and needles. Is it silencing comedians? Probably, yeah. Because even when I write a joke, I was like, I have a joke about a turtle. Like, the problem is, Trump is like your hangry dad. You never know when he's going to snap and lose his mind over something, right? So it's like, I have a joke about a turtle. Maybe he had a pet turtle growing up. Speed racer, he loved his little turtle. Now I say something about a turtle. I'm a turtle hater. He gets all the turtle lobbyists out. They move slowly because they're turtle lobbyists, but they are lobbyists. And the next thing I know, thank you, camera guy, and then, right? But eventually, I get canceled. Now, I know this sounds crazy, but we're not too far off. And one of my big points here is, everybody watching at home, this is your problem too. Why? Because it's not just about comedians. You have a daughter, she's 16. She goes to a public school funded by the federal government. She's on the debate team. She chooses a side that something's wrong with Trump or the Trump administration. A Trumper in the class tells the parent tells the school board tells the Department of Education. They call Trump, their administration says, we'll cut your funding, suspend that girl, make an example of her, and that hurts her chances. Does this sound crazy to you? Not to me right now. That's plausible, and that's where he is, and that's why everybody watching should be invested in this.
Okay, let's set the stage. Free speech is not a gift from politicians, and it is not conditional upon whether the president or any attorney general likes what is being said. It is a cornerstone of American democracy, enshrined in the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Yet in recent comments, the president and his attorney general have suggested that hate speech should be targeted, framing criticism of the president himself as a form of unacceptable expression. This distortion is dangerous because it undermines the very principle that protects dissent, that protects accountability, and ultimately democracy itself. So let's start by defining free speech. Okay, I usually don't do anything until I define the terms. The First Amendment is remarkably clear. Congress should make or shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. Over the centuries, the Supreme Court has interpreted this as protecting not just popular speech, but also the speech that most people may find offensive, disturbing, or even repugnant. In Brandenburg versus Ohio in 1969, the court protected inflammatory speech by a Ku Klux Klan leader, clarifying that only speech that incites imminent lawless action can be restricted. In Texas versus Johnson in 1989, burning the flag was upheld as a constitutional right, even though many found it deeply offensive. These cases establish a simple truth. The government does not have the authority to punish or silence speech simply because it is unpopular or uncomfortable or critical of political leaders. Trump, of course, would love to conditionally circumvent this law, granting more speech freedom for Republicans and more speech restrictions for Democrats. Here's the double standard, number 2. The Attorney General's recent remarks that authorities should absolutely target individuals engaged in so-called hate speech mirrors our current president's long-standing hostility toward the press and public dissent. According to the president, fake news has always been a code for any news I don't like. And now hate speech is being redefined to mean any speech critical of Donald Trump. This is not a defense of the public against violence or slander. It's an effort or an attempt to create a conditional First Amendment where Trump and his allies decide what qualifies as acceptable speech. That vision is not democracy. It is authoritarianism dressed in the language of law and order. Number 3, let's talk about historical warnings, because history is always important to me. America has faced similar threats before. During World War I, the Espionage Act of 1917 and Sedition Act of 1918 were used to imprison critics of the government, including Eugene V. Debs, who received 10 years in prison for a speech opposing the war. History has judged these prosecutions as shameful overreaches. The same can be said for Senator Joseph McCarthy in the 1950s, who destroyed careers by labeling dissent as un-American. In hindsight, McCarthy's tactics are remembered as a witch hunt, not as a defense of the Republic. Today, Trump's attempts to weaponize the term hate speech against critics falls into the same category, a political tool to silence opposition. This brings us to number 4, the real meaning of free speech. Let us folks be clear. Free speech does not mean freedom from criticism. It does not mean freedom from fact-checking. And it certainly does not mean freedom for leaders to muzzle dissenters under the guise of protecting patriotism or civility. True free speech is messy, it's uncomfortable, and sometimes deeply offensive, but it is the price of liberty. So in conclusion, we're going to do what I call a call to clarity. Attorney General Bondi and President Trump would prefer a nation where free speech is conditional, where their critics can be silenced under the pretext of protecting America from, in this case, hate. But our Constitution does not allow for such conditional freedoms. If we want to preserve democracy, we must defend the right of every citizen, even those we disagree with, to speak without fear of government reprisal. Let's call it what it is. The First Amendment is not Trump's to define nor Bondi's to enforce. It belongs to the people. And as long as it does, dissent remains not just a right, but a duty.